So in part 4, we're going to be working on our Modal, building it up and adding AI recommendations to it. We're also going to be working on caching, so that way when we refresh our page, we don't have to sit there and wait for it to reload. Our images are already cached, our data is cached. So with all that said, let's jump right into the project. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you are enjoying the project. Let's jump right into it. Let's go ahead and actually create our Modal, so you can see the pop-up when you click on these comics. All right, so we have our Modal built out, so not every single thing, but we're gonna stop right here because as you can see, it says unclose. For unclose, handle close is not a function, and that's because we haven't written that out yet. So for right now, I'm just gonna go over what we have here. So this is the Modal opening. So open is open. When you click it, it opens. Unclose, this handle close that we're gonna write. We want the max width to be medium. We want the full width to be true. This is the class name, paper props, which is just telling you background white. For dark backgrounds, we have background gray 800, text black. For dark pages, we have text white. And then dialog title, this is what we want to be displayed on our as our title. So selected comic.title, that's what we're doing. However, the thing is, we haven't written any function out yet that's going to allow us to see all this. So this is basically it for comic loading. Here, circular progress is just that circular loading display that shows that something's loading. So if the comic is loading, then show the circular progress, else show the image and the description, and then everything else we're going to do later. So let's write out the functions that pertain to the Modal. So we can go ahead and open this up more. And now if we scroll up, we want to go back to our functions here, and we're just going to start, let's start right after handle heart click. So let's come down here a couple, and then now we can write our function. So first thing we want to do, we want to say console handle click open, and we want to say async. It's going to be an arrow function, so async, and we're going to pass in the comic. And here we're going to say set open to true. We're going to say set comic loading to true. All right, and we're going to say set selected comic to comic. We're going to say set comic details. And this is going to be an empty array. This is going to be set recommendation loading, and this is going to be true. And then we're going to say set recommendations, and this is going to be an empty array. So for recommendations, we'll come back to that. That's with the AI. Now we can say set comic loading, and this is going to be false. Then we're going to say fetch recommendations. This is going to be comic. So this isn't going to make sense yet. We'll work on that after this. So if dialog content ref dot current, then we want to say dialog content ref dot current dot scroll top is equal to dialog content ref dot current dot scroll height. There we go. Awesome. So this is for our handle click open. So like I said, actually we can just comment this out because we don't need this right now. So let's just comment that out. And now we can say const handle close is equal to arrow function. And we're going to say set open to false. We're going to say set comic details, and this is going to be an empty array. Set recommendations. This is also going to be an empty array, but like I said, we don't really need anything that pertains to recommendations, so we can actually just do this. So this is what we need. So now we can write our save comic function. So right here, we're going to say const save comic is equal to async comic. And we're going to say try catch. And within our try, we're going to say await Axios dot post to/API. So remember when I said for some of them, I'm just going to write the function in here. I'm just going to write the request in here rather than use a server action. That's what we're doing right now. So I'm not going to use a server action for this. So this is going to be user ID. Awesome. Now we can set comics to previous comics, and we did this earlier, so it's pretty much the same thing. And this is going to be prev comics dot map, and we're going to use C. And this is going to be c.id is equal to, actually I kind of butchered this, so set comics previous comics, and we're going to say previous comics dot map C, and this is going to be c.id is equal to comic.id. So if there's a comic ID, then we want to say C. So we want to destructure C, and then is saved is true, or we just have C. Let's see, do we have one too many? Nope. There we go. And now we can set search results to previous search. Let's see. So it's actually going to be previous search results. There we go. And we're just gonna have previous search results dot map c, doing the same thing pretty much, is equal to comic dot id or dot c is saved true or C. And then we have one more. So actually, let's write the recommendation one. Recommendation. And then we'll just comment it out. So we're doing the same thing pretty much for all of them. So previous recommendation. And we already explained what previous was doing, how previous whatever was working. So whether it be previous recommendation, previous comics, or previous search results, we explained something similar like that when we created the front, as we were creating the front end. So I'm not really going to go over it again. It's the same basic idea. So here we're going to say previous recommendation, and it's going to be previous recommendation dot map recommendation. And this is going to be recommendation.id. And remember, this is going to be for the AI part. So we're just going to comment it out because it's not going to serve us at this moment. And then we're going to say recommendation is saved true, or we have the recommendation. So what's wrong with this? Okay, so it should be set recommendations. There we go. So we can just comment this out because we don't need this right now. So we're going to have one more actually. So this is going to be set selected comic, and this is going to be previous comic, and then we're going to have previous comic dot map, well, previous comic and previous comic dot id is equal to comic dot id. If we have that, then we're going to say previous comics, well, previous comic is saved is true, or previous comic. Now we can write our error, and this is going to be console.error, error saving comic. Error. So in order to unsave a comic, we're going to say const unsave comic is equal to async comic is equal to, well, arrow function. And here we're going to say try catch, and this is going to be await delete comic. So we're going to import that server action. And we're going to take in comic.id or comic.comic ID. And then we're going to set comics to previous comics. So previous comics.map. Let's just use C again. It just makes it easier. And here we're going to say C.id is equal to comic.id. If we have that, then it's C. The structure C is saved here, becomes false, or we have C. So let's see, I think we're missing. There we go. Awesome. And now we can do the same thing for set search results. And we're just going to say previous search results. And we're going to say previous search results dot map C. And it's pretty much the same thing we've been doing. So I'm probably just going to copy and paste for the next one. So here we're going to say C.id is equal to comic.id. If we have that, then we're going to say the structure C is saved false, or C. And then we have selected comic. So for selected comic, I'm just going to copy this and pop it right here, except here it's going to be false. All right. Okay, so we have an error somewhere. Where is our error coming from? Okay, so we didn't finish. Let's see. I'm guessing this should have one more. Let's see, selected comic, previous comic, and previous comic ID is equal to this. Previous comic is saved. Previous comic. So let's see, where are we going wrong here? Let's finish this up first. Console.error. Error saving comic. Okay, so where is our error coming from? So let's see. I think we have an extra one here. There we go. So we have on save. Yeah, let's write our recommendation. Let's write out the one for recommendation. So we're gonna say const handle. We're just gonna comment it out, but let's just do this so we get it out the way. So handle recommendation. Recommendation, click. So this is for when we have our recommendation, we click on the recommendation. So this is going to be recommendation, and this is going to be set comic loading to true. We're then going to set selected comic to the recommendation, set comic loading to false. We're gonna say if dialog content ref, and this is just to manipulate the DOM so that it scrolls to the top. Then dialog top or the bottom. So dialog, yeah, to the top. So dialog content ref dot current scroll dot scroll top is equal to 0. And then here, so let's go ahead and do that. And then here we're going to say const handle recommendation heart click. So when you click the heart button within a recommendation, we're going to see all this later on. I'm just getting it out the way so we don't have to retype it. So we're going to take recommendation. There we go. And then we're going to state if rec.is saved, then await on save comic, and this is going to be recommendation. Else we're going to say await save comic recommendation, and then we can set the recommendations to the same thing we've been doing, previous recommendation. And this is going to be previous recommendation dot map. We're going to use R here. There we go. And this is going to be r.id is equal to recommendation.id. Or, well, if we have the recommendation.id, then we're going to destructure R, and we're going to say is saved, and this is going to be recommendation is not saved. Or we're going to go with R. So we'll explain this when we get there, but for right now, just write that down and uncomment it. So we have everything we need. So now, in order to pass these this argument in there, we can scroll down here, and in comics to render.map here, we want to create an onClick. And with this onClick, what we're going to do is create a function, and this function is going to have handle click open, and we're going to pass in the comic. So now everything should be good. So let's go over to our application. Now let's try and reopen it. So if we click on this, okay, so it says invalid source. Okay, so we have to configure this. So because we're using image here, or is it? Because we're using image here, we have to configure this. We have to configure this prop. So I'll show you how to go about it in a second. So let's open this up. So let's go over to where is it? It's Next.js config. So next.config. And here, within this const next config, we're just gonna paste this in there. So actually, I already had it, so it doesn't matter. So we're just gonna paste this part in there, right? And this is all it is. So we're gonna say next config. For the images, we're gonna have a remote pattern, and it's gonna be an array of objects. So the protocol here is HTTP. The host name is i.anilhill.us. So that's just what the host name is for the Marvel images. So it's i.anilhill.us. The port is going to be an empty string. The path name is /u/production. Well, so /u/prod/marvel/***. And then here we're using the TMDB because we're going to be working with TMDB's API in a few. So you're just going to have the same thing here. So you can go ahead and copy this as is. And I'm just going to leave it here for a second. So you can pause the screen, copy this into your next.config.mjs, and then save it. So once you save it, you go back to your application, and let's try and refresh this. So now let's see when we click on it. As you can see, let's open this up. We have this, so it's opening up as a modal, but the problem is it's not where it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and refresh this again, and then we can go ahead and so this is currently, it's loading, so give it a second, but we can go ahead and fix that positioning. So our modal is not properly configured, meaning it's not showing where it's supposed to show. So we'll go ahead and fix that right now. So the problem stems from here. So as you can see, we have dialog here, and then we prematurely close this rather than just leave it as is. So when we have dialog, we should just have it as this, and then we can add a closing tag over here. So that would properly position our modal when we open it. So let's give it a try. Let's see if that works. So when we click on this now, as you can see, it's properly positioned. So here's what we get. Right now we have no description available. So this is what we have currently. If we click this X, it closes out. So we're just gonna go ahead and finish up building our modal, and then we'll take it from there. All right, guys, so as you can see, this is what it looks like. So now if we hit save item, let's see, does it save yet? Nope. Let's see why not. So let's go inspect the page. So it says save comic not found. So we probably used a different, let's see, 136. So let's head on back. So 136. Save comic. So is that what we called it? Let's head on to our backend and let's see API save comics. So we called it save comics here. So that's why. So there's a discrepancy there. So save comics. Let's save that. So let's try it again. So there we go. So now it saves. So save, unsave, save. Oh, let's see. So let's see. So if we save, all right. So we have a conflict there. So let's go ahead and click on this. So here it's given us a responsive comic is already saved. That means when we click on the heart shape on the heart icon again, it does not delete. It just stays saved. So that's a problem. So let's go ahead and fix that. All right, guys. So I was able to fix that. So the problem was if we come back to API and you go to delete comic ID. So if you go to this route here, you will see that originally we had import object ID from MongoDB and object was in lowercase, so lowercase o. So we had to take that out. So we have to take this out and replace it with a object ID in uppercase. So object starts with an uppercase O. And then when you come here, as you can see, we had this originally, so we had lowercase o here, so we had this in camel case, whereas this should be uppercase O and uppercase I, so object ID, so it should turn a different color. So that was the problem. So we could take this out of here and save it. So now when we go ahead and save this, so let's go ahead and save this, and we open this Modal here, we can go ahead and save item and then unsave it as well. So when we save the item and come back here, you can see it's saved, and then we can unsave it. So save, unsave. So that's what we did over here. So lastly, what we're going to do is we are going to create the recommended. So we're going to use GPT-4o to get suggestions for other comics as well. So here it says you might also like, which is derived from here, you might also like. All right, so here with you might also like, this is where our recommendation is going to go. But before we do it, we have to kind of work with the backend. So actually, let's go ahead and just type out because I don't want to come back to the Modal again and redo it. So we can come over here and just type out what we need to do, and then we'll make the backend for it, so it'll just automatically work. So here, I'm just going to do the same thing and just run through it, and then we're going to explain what's going on. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the UI, so with the front end. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So if we click on this now, as you can see, it just says you might also like. There's nothing being received from the backend. So what we want to do also is we want to come up here and we want to uncomment everything that has to do with recommendation. So let's just uncomment this. And we're just going to uncomment this. So let's make this bigger actually. All right. And let's just uncomment all this. Great. So what this is saying basically is here you have you might also like, and we go right into loading our recommendation. So if it's loading, then we have the circular progress. If it's not, then we want to map through the recommendations that we receive from the backend. So when we do that, this is the this is the CSS for it, and then here it says handle recommendation click. Handle recommendation click. Did you mean handle? What's the difference? Oh, I didn't spell it properly here. So let's find that. So handle recommendation. There we go. So we have that. So we have this function. So where are we? There we go. So here we have handle recommendation click, and because we map through recommendations, we're gonna pass this rec this rec here. We're gonna pass it in to this handle recommendation click function. So when we do that, we're now able to use it as an argument here and get all this get this function to run with it. So handle recommendation recommendation hard click. So let's see how that one goes. Recommendation. There we go. So now we have to find that one. So if we scroll down, so we have this, and then we want to truncate the title because we're given a limited amount of space within our modal. So we're going to truncate it by passing in the title of the recommendation, and the number we're going to give it is 10. So if it's more than 10, then we want to truncate it. If the title is more than 10 characters, we want to truncate it. If not, we leave it the same. Same here. We just want the type. So if it's a movie, whatever, if it's a comic, whatever, you just want to put it in there. And then description, we also want to truncate it. And that's pretty much it. So here we have a placeholder.wp. We're going to do this later. So we're going to have an image that's going to act as our placeholder if we don't have a thumbnail being returned. So we'll do that later. So icon button is this. So for the icon button, we're doing the same thing we did with the modal. So I think we did something similar to this. It's the same thing. The style, we're just going to give it this style. You can always change the style however you want. Here, the color, if it's saved, you're just going to give it a red or white. So this is the same icon style we used basically on the main hero page. So the only difference is where we position the heart icon is all. And then we have this. So if it's saved, you want the heart icon. If it's not, you want the regular heart. So that's pretty much it. So now we just got to find where we have this handle heart click. So handle recommendation heart click is what we got to find. So if we scroll down, let's see, handle heart click. So it should be handle heart recommendation. Handle recommendation. So what did we call it here? Let's see. That's handle heart click. Let's go back. Oh yeah, this is correct. So we got to scroll further down. That's a problem. So let's see, handle recommendation click, handle heart recommendation click. So this should be handle heart. So where should we name it at the top? Handle recommendation heart click. There we go. And yep, that's correct. Okay, so is there anything else that wasn't properly fetched? Why is handle heart click not working? Handle heart. This should be heart. There we go. All right, so let's go back up here before we move out of this to make sure everything else is done correctly. Handle heart click, handle click open. So fetch recommendation. So for fetch recommendation, we just come down here and we're just going to create a function. So const fetch recommendations, and we're going to take in comic. Awesome. So we're just going to save that. When we save that, we'll come back once we finish our recommendation API, and then we'll figure this out. So now we can close out of this because we have everything we need so far. The only thing missing is this. So as you can see, it's just gonna keep loading. So it's not gonna fetch anything because we don't even have anything to fetch. So we're gonna close out of this. So we're gonna quickly go to our API over here, and then we're gonna create a new folder, and this is gonna be called comic recommendation. Recommendation, and this is gonna be route.js. All right, so before we go further, I'm just going to explain to you what we're going to be doing loosely. So what we're going to do is the front end is going to send something called item details, which is going to be comprised of the title, the type, and the description. So it's going to pass those things from the back end, from the front end to the back end, the title, the type, and the description. So we're then going to tell our GPT-4o model that it should. We're going to tell it that it's an assistant that provides 10 Marvel comic recommendation based on the description that it's being given from the front end. So in return, it returns a title, a type, and a description as a JSON object based on the description it was given. So that it's going to give you 10 different types of comics based on that description. So because we're getting it from an AI, it could like time out and things like that. So we're going to give it 4 attempts to get 10 objects for us. So when we do that, we're going to then take the items it gives us. So the JSON object that it gives us, we're going to extract the title again, the description, and the actually, we're just going to extract the title, not the description. So we're going to extract the title, and then we're going to take that title and plug it in as a title for our Marvel API. So the query title is going to be the titles that were given by the AI. And that way we're able to get information about the comics that the AI gave us via the Marvel API, and then we send that information to the front end. So that's pretty much what we're doing. So we're kind of working with two APIs simultaneously. So let's go ahead and code this out. So first we're going to say import Axios from Axios. So let's go ahead and minimize this. And then we're going to say import crypto from crypto. Now we want to export a sync function post request Then we're going to say try catch. And with try, we're going to say const item details is equal to await request.json. Now we're going to state const API key is equal to process.env.open AI key. And remember, I said all our API keys are within our .env file. So my API key for my GPT model is for my GPT API is in my .env file. So that's how I'm extracting this. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to state, let's come over here and let's just open up comics or something. We're just going to grab, actually not comics, comic search. We're just going to grab all of this because we're going to need it. So the timestamp and everything. And we're just going to place this in here because we're going to need it. So when we do that, now we can write the logic that goes if we do not have an API key, or we don't have a private key, or we don't have a public key. So this should all be public key. This should be private key. So if we don't have all this, then we want to console.error API keys are not set in environment variable. There we go. So basically we didn't set the API. We didn't set any of this within our API variable. So our .env is missing those credentials. So return next response.json, and this would be message. And the message here would be API keys are not configured. Awesome. Now we have a status of 500. So that's a server error. Now we can say, if we do have these things, we can now say const title type description is equal to item details. And we can state const message is equal to an array of objects stating role, and the role here is system. What's going on here? Oh. So this should be in here. There we go. So now we can state const title type description is equal to item details. And then we can say const message is equal to an array of objects. And here we're going to have the role, which is system. We're going to have content, which is you are a helpful assistant that provides 10 Marvel comic recommendations based on description. So that's what we're telling the AI that it's doing. So now we can have another object here, and we're going to say the role of the user is content. We have, let's do this. So we have title, which is going to be title. type which is going to be type or not available. So, and then we're going to have description, which is going to be description. And then we're going to say, please provide. So let's see. Should be a comma. So let's see. Content, description. That's the problem. So it should be all the way over here. There we go. Please provide each recommendation as a JSON object with the following keys: title, type, description. The response should be an array of 10 objects. There we go. So now we just stated what we just gave everyone their role. So the user, we gave them the role, and the AI, we gave it its role. So now, okay, so there's an error somewhere. So let's see, it says there's an error somewhere. So let's try and find this error. So we have message. So let's see, actually, let's make this messages. Let's see. Okay, so I don't see the error, so we're just gonna keep working. Let's see. So now we want to say let AI response equal, let AI response, and then we'll say let attempts, let's come up here, 1 equal 0, and const max attempts is gonna equal 4. So what this is saying is we're gonna have 4 attempts to get this JSON object. So if it times out, if it doesn't get it the first time, second time, third time, it's gonna have one more attempt to get 10 objects. That's all this is saying. So we're gonna use a while loop. So we're gonna use a while loop. So while attempts is less than max attempt, then we're gonna state const response is equal to await axios dot post, and we're posting to this for our GPT route, and then we're gonna state comma, and here it's gonna be model GPT 4.0. We're gonna say messages is messages, and we're gonna say temperature is gonna be 0.7. Awesome. So now for our headers, we're gonna state so for the headers, we're gonna state headers, and authorization is gonna be bearer API. There we go, API key. And lastly, we're gonna state the content type is application slash JSON. So let's do this. There we go. So now we want to write the AI response. We're going to state AI response is equal to response.data.choices, and we're going to pick the first one, and then we're going to say .message.content.trim. So AI response is going to equal AI response.replace, and we're just going to have a bunch of like rejects. So it's going to be this. So this is what it's going to look like. And then we're going to have .trim. Okay, so it still says there's an error. I don't know. It's still saying there's a import crypto from crypto. Oh, that's why. So this should be this. There we go. Now we can do that. So now we can have a try catch. And within the try, we're going to say const recommendation. Let's say recommendations is JSON.parse. And we're going to be parsing the AI response. And then we're going to state if the recommendation, so if recommendations.length is equal to 10, then we break. So meaning if we hit 10, then we're pretty much done with that cycle. Else, what we want to say is console.error failed to parse AI response as JSON. And then we're just going to have error. And then here we're going to have attempts. So if there's an error, we want to attempt it again. So remember, we have up until 4 times to attempt it. So once we do that, now we can state if AI, if there's no AI response, or attempts is equal to max attempts, then we want to return next response.json message failed to get valid AI response after multiple attempts. This is going to have a status of 500 as it is a server error. Now we can come down here and we're going to say const recommendations is equal to JSON.parse again, and we're going to say AI response. And here we're going to say const detailed recommendation is equal to await promise.all, and we're going to say recommendations.map async, and we're going to say const query is equal to encode URI component. You pretty much understand what that does from earlier. And this is going to be rec.title. And now we're going to have try catch. And for our try, we're going to say const marvel response is equal to await axios.get. It's going to be this, except here it's going to have public key. And as I said, for the title here, it's going to be the query. So the title here is going to be this rec.title. So that's what we're plugging in as the title. So we're taking whatever title we get from our AI response, and we're going to use it as a Marvel. We're going to use it for our Marvel response by plugging it in here as the title query, and then we're going to get the data from it. So when we do that, then we can say if Marvel response.data.results.length is greater than 0, then we want to say const item details is equal to Marvel response.data.results, and we're picking the first one. So we're going to return recommendation. We're going to return the ID as items details.id. We're going to say description. So let's go ahead and do this. There we go. So we're going to say description is item details dot description. We're going to state actually description, sometimes it can have no description, so you can also say no description available. And you're going to say issue number, item details dot thumbnail, and we're going to say path is item details dot thumbnail dot path. The extension is item details dot thumbnail dot extension. Did I spell that wrong? So it should be an S and there should be an S. Or null. So we can then say else console.error no results found for, let's use backticks here, rec.title. Awesome. And then we want to return pretty much the same thing, and we're gonna say ID here is gonna be crypto dot random UUID, and what that does is it just generates a unique ID. Since we're not getting one, description here is going to be no description available. Issue number is going to be an A. Thumbnail is going to be null. All right, and then for catch, we're gonna say Marvel error, and here we're gonna say console.error error fetching Marvel details for rec.title, and we're gonna say return, and we're returning the same thing. Return next response.json message, well, not message, recommendations is going to be detailed recommendations, and it's a status of 200. And then for the error, we can then say console console.error, error occurred, error, and then we can return next response.json with a message internal server error, and here we're gonna have a status of 500. So that's what this is. So this is pretty much our backend for the AI. All I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back to that front end code. So let's go back to our front end code, which is going to be, where is it? Comics. There we go. And now we can write out our fetch recommendation. So rather than write it all out, I'm just gonna copy and paste it because this is a long video as it is. So it should say recommendations first of all. So we're just gonna take this and we're just gonna do that. So for fetch recommendation, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing. So here we're gonna say const fetch recommendations is equal to async. We're taking that comic argument, and then we're gonna say try const rec response is equal to await axios.post. So we're posting to AP/API comic recommendation, and we're passing that item details that we talked about. So the item detail is going to be comprised of the title, which is comic.title. The type is comic. The description here is comic.description, and then we're going to say const saved data is await saved comic fetch user ID. Const saved comic IDs is equal to this. So this is the same thing we've been doing above, and then here we're going to say set recommendations to updated recommendations. Catch is error, console.error, failed to fetch recommendations error. Finally, we're going to set recommendation loading. Let's see. So set recommendation loading. There we go. So this is what we have. So if we go to our front end, let's see if this works for us. So we're going to go to Chrome. Let's open this up. And if we click on this, it's saying you might also like. So let's see if it actually works. So this is taking a while. So let's go ahead and just restart the local host. And then we can go ahead and just refresh it. So let's try it again. So let's come up here and let's click on that. And now let's see if it works. So we're also going to have this open to see if we get any errors. So as you can see, we do have the data coming in. So this is all the data. Let's see. So for some reason, it's not getting the images. So I think that's just due to, for some reason, the Marvel API is pretty slow today. So I think that's why. So I'll give it a couple of seconds. If it doesn't do so, then I can go ahead and debug it. All right, guys. So the reason that's not working is because if we come over to comic recommendation, you can see that here issue number has been set to item details.thumbnail, which shouldn't be the case. Issue number should be item details.issue number. And then for this thumbnail, there we go. So this should be thumbnail item details.thumbnail, and then this. So this is what this should be set to. So once we're done with that, we can close out of it. But before we go on, something I do want to show you guys is right now, anytime we fetch data, the whole system reloads and we're not able to see the data immediately. What we want to do is change that and use fetch instead of Axios. So here we're going to say, rather than Axios.get, we're going to change it to fetch. And this is within API comics, so API/comics. So we're going to be using fetch. And instead of this, we're going to take this out, and we should get this instead. So if there's no response.ok, then throw this. Else, this is the data, and then we don't need to console log it. And then this is the return data. Actually, we're not going to be using return data. As you can see, that stops the whole thing. So instead we're going to be saying const data, and comics is going to equal data.data.results. So this is what we're going to be using for this. So now when we use fetch, we can now state, let's give it a comma here, we can now state next, and we want to say revalidate. Let's put this within this, and we'll say revalidate, and this should be 3600. So every hour it revalidates. And now we want to do the same thing for our server action. So for comic fetch, we want to come over here and we want to say fetch, and we want to do the same thing. So we're going to give it a we're going to say next, and this is going to be revalidate 3600. Awesome. Now rather than return response.data, we're going to change this up as well. We're going to be using this. So we're going to say if there's no response.ok, then throw this error. Else const data is equal to await response.json. We don't need the console log again. And then we're going to say return data. So with that, let's see if our application works. So let's close out of this. What we're going to do is restart our server. So we're going to do this, and now we can go to our application and see if it works. So as you can see, it loads up perfectly. So now if we refresh the page, so if you refresh the page, as you can see, it does that again. So what we want to do is, rather than say revalidate, let's just use force, let's use cache, and we're just going to state, so let's make this so, and we're going to say cache, and cache is going to be force cache. And we're going to do the same thing for comics. So for the comic API. So for comics, we're going to do the same thing. So rather than next, we're just going to say for cache, and we're just going to state force cache. There we go. So now it just forces the cache. So rather than revalidate. So let's give it a try. So let's go ahead and restart this server, and let's refresh this page. Okay, so we're going to give it a couple of seconds and see if it renders. All right, so as you can see, the data renders. So let's try and refresh it again. As you can see, when you refresh it, now it's just there. So it's been cached. So that there you go. So now we don't have to worry about waiting for the data to load up. So now if I click on this, let's make this bigger now. Let's close out of that. So if I make this bigger, there we go. So here's the Modal. So now it's saying you might also like, and then it's gonna pull up the recommendation. So another thing I found was over here. So if we scroll down in comics, the component, if you scroll down to the image, is, as you can see, this says SCR. This should say SRC. And we can go ahead and save that. So now let's go back to the application. So it's still fetching. Okay, so if we scroll down, as you can see, we have our image. So now not everything has an image, because Marvel doesn't have all the images for every comic that's been given. So what we can do is, now we want to use our placeholder. So if we come back to our code here, you can see that within our public, there's no placeholder. So I have a placeholder in my documents. So I went ahead and used ChatGPT to create a placeholder. So I'm just going to import that placeholder to my public file here under the same name of placeholder here. So placeholder.webp. So I'm just going to name it this, and then I'll show you how it works. So as you can see, I have my placeholder here. It's within my public folder, and it looks like this. I just asked ChatGPT to make me a boilerplate, no image available placeholder, and it did this. So you can do the same thing. So because it's from the web, because it's from ChatGPT, it's under the WEBP extension. So we can just leave it like that. And then when you come over here, you already have it as /placeholder.webp, and we're just going to leave it like that. So when you go ahead and save it, and come back here. We'll need to refresh this. So when you refresh it, as you can see, it's still there. So we're going to click on this. Now it's going to get the data again. All right, so as you can see, now we have each image, and we have the no image available when there's no image available. So now to test to see if this works, if you click on one of the recommendations, as you can see, it'll show up here as weapon X. So it'll show up here, and then at the bottom here, it would also show the images that the recommendations you might like. So for these, there are no descriptions. So let's see if we can find one with a description. So if you click on that, it'll show you Wolverine the Long Night. If you scroll down, you'll see that it says, oh, for some reason it says no description. So for this one, you can see that there's a bug, because here there is clearly a description here. So let's go ahead and fix that. So the problem comes from here. So if you go back to comics, the components, comics.jsx, here you can see it says selected comic.description in a capital D. So you're going to use the lowercase d and just save that. Also, what I realized was we only see the print price. I forgot to import over the digital price. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. And so I just went ahead and copy and pasted that. So this is for the digital price. So it's the same thing, except here it just says digital purchase price. So you go ahead and just copy that in there. It's right below the print price. So it's a div right below the print price. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and do this. So let's clear this out, npm run dev. So we're going to restart that server and then go ahead and open up our application again. So here's our application. When we click this again and we scroll down, it's going to show the digital price now for each item, as well as the print price. So you might also like it's still loading up. So we're going to give it a second while it loads up. Okay, so now this is loaded up. As you can see, this is all loaded. This is fine. You can always make this a little bigger. I just don't want to go back into the CS and I don't want to go back into the CSS and do that, as this has already taken a long time to do. Maybe later on we'll do that. But here, if I click on let's click on this one, Wolverine Weapon X. So if I click on this, as you can see, it says no description available, but here also says no description available. So let's find one with the description. So I believe this is the one we tried last time, Wolverine the Long Night. So if we click on that, here you can see here is the description. It also tells you that there's no print price available, no digital price. We go ahead and save the item. As you can see, it saves it right there. And let's try and save another one. So let's see. Let's come over here. So when we click this, let's just go ahead and save this item. As you can see, it's saved. So even if I refresh the page, this still stays saved. So with that said, this is the project. So this is the end of the comic portion of the project. So in the next one, we should be able to do both the character page and start on the saved page. So saved over here. So as you can see, when you click on saved, nothing's done because the page has not been created. But for right now, we're done with comics. We've used the AI, we've parsed data through it, everything. So now all we have to do is create our characters, our titles, and we're going to create our saved page. So for the next one, it should be a lot faster because we've already done the bulk of it. So now we can just speed run through a lot of it, since it's going to be the same process, as in getting the AI recommendations. We could just do the same thing we did for comics for characters. So it's the same implementation. So it shouldn't be this long it shouldn't take this long to do. But yeah, if you guys enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It goes a long way. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.